All right, guys. I'm here with a scientist, and we're doing our second podcast. The Skeptics Review.
Skeptics Review. What's up, guys? This is the scientist, as you know, and I'm here with the arbiter. And for not currently present with us is Rachel. He's more of a behind-the-scenes contributor to the Skeptics Review.
And we're going to be talking about several different topics today. Obviously, the passing of the late, great Tom Petty, what we're currently listening to, and our overall theme for this episode, our guilty pleasures. We all have those songs, bands, albums that we necessarily don't advertise to our friends and families that we listen to, and we're no different, so we're going to talk about those towards the end of the episode.
Yeah, that guilty pleasure. I'm laughing inside right now just thinking about that.
Yeah. Like I said, I'm sure we all have our horror stories of being busted or confronted about the fact that we listen to a certain thing, and you know what? Own it. Yep. Try not to feel guilty about it, because if it's good music and it gets you in that spot where, good music, hits you, then there's no reason to feel guilty about it. But let's purge ourselves of those feelings today.
Yeah, definitely.
So, first and foremost, the late great Tom Petty. I mean, what else can we say other than the fact that Skeptics Review was founded in 2014? We're going strong still, adding this whole new chapter to our love and sharing of music, which is the audio podcast. We're new to it still, but hopefully you guys will enjoy what we talk about, and we welcome any and all feedback. Scientists, why don't you go ahead and tell them where they can hit us back at?
Yeah, before we touch on Tom Petty, which we have quite a bit to discuss on that, feel free to get in touch with us on Facebook, which is the Skeptics Review, or on our Twitter. You can find us at Skeptics Review. You can follow us, message us, ideas, feedback, comments, anything to make this show better, so that we can gear it towards you guys. We're just a team who enjoys talking about music, current topics, past artists, and we want to hear from you.
Definitely.
So a little bit about our foundation, how we began the Skeptics Review. As you mentioned, we were created in 2014 based on the idea that Rachel and I, the scientist, we were always talking about music. We'll text each other, we'll send each other music videos, albums, you name it, and this goes back to childhood. We send each other cassettes. And so we just had the idea, hey, what if we just wrote about it? We enjoy writing in our free time, so we began writing blogs. And that's how the Skeptics Review started. Little by little, we've come to grow to a pretty cool atmosphere where we enjoy what we do, and we enjoy telling people about it. So, and the interesting part about what started the Skeptics Review was the album I want to share right now. It was Daft Punk with Random Access Memories. I don't know if you've heard that album.
Of course, definitely.
Yeah, it's one of my greatest albums that I've ever heard. Personally, I know a lot of people won't agree, and I will tell you, Rachel didn't fully agree. But when I heard that album, I just needed to talk to somebody about it, and he was there to listen. And he would respond with, "If it's that good, then I'll check it out." So that's basically what kickstarted the Skeptics Review, and we have been moving forward. Obviously, we have our daily lives, but we try to contribute as much as we can, as often as we can.
Definitely. And I got brought in, and it was an honor and definitely a challenge to take on the writing part. I do enjoy writing, but as a scientist said, it is hard sometimes to find the time to do that. And we've been wanting to incorporate a new medium, which is now the audio podcast, because like you said, it's great to talk about it, and I personally feel that the podcast is a very natural way to do that. You just talk, let it get recorded, send it out there for you guys to listen to, and hopefully it feels like a conversation that you will have had or have had with your friends and family about the music that you love. Because I know for me, like, music is a huge part of my daily life. I cannot live without it. I travel ever since I was a kid, since I got my first Walkman up to now with my phone. I gotta have music to get me through the day, and I'm sure there's a ton of you guys out there that are just like us. Oh, yeah. And that's really our goal, to reach out to you guys and to connect with people that are as passionate about music as we are.
Yeah, and with that being said, I mean, we can go and get started and talk about one of a passion that we have for rock music, for legendary rock artists. the passing of Tom Petty. And Arbiter, let me ask you, I mean, what was your first album from Tom Petty that you jammed out to, or how did you discover Tom Petty?
Tom Petty, I think when I first discovered him was, of all places, through MTV. I am
Okay.
of the MTV generation. I was born in '81, so I grew up with the early times of Tom Petty, and
Okay.
so he had several different music videos. One of the first ones that I definitely remember was "Don't Come Around Here No More."
Right. Okay.
I remember the video had an Alice in Wonderland vibe to it. There's a scene where they're cutting her up as a piece of cake and they're eating it. Like, I found it disturbing, but I couldn't take my eyes off of it, and the
Yeah.
whole time the song would get stuck in my head. Right, so that was my first introduction to Tom Petty, and he has a very unique voice. So it's kind of nasally, kind of raspy,
Yeah.
kind of twangy, and it's doesn't sound like anybody else's. So that was my first introduction.
You know, mine, as I mentioned before, I grew up listening to rock music, basically because of my older brother. You know, I was introduced to many artists because of him, and Tom Petty was one of these artists that I first got into. And he would play the Greatest Hits album, which, you know, you had all of the most amazing music, Running Down a Dream, I Won't Back Down, and I grew to admire his musicianship even more as a guitarist. I mean, he was amazing. Yeah, he was, you know.
Yeah, that's tough to say.
So obviously, when we found out, you know, about his death, you know, his cardiac arrest, you know, we're waiting the news. We're waiting to see what happened, and it was just so tragic to finally hear the official diagnosis that he had passed on. And you know, all we do now is go back and listen to his music, even with a deeper thought.
Yeah, because it's he's one of those artists that, for me, you know, he's right up there, you know, like with Aerosmith or you know, Neil Diamond or Bob Dylan,
Yeah.
right? Like that are like classic storytellers and writers and musicians, and we take for granted the fact that, oh, you know, like they're rock royalty, like they're kind of like gods living among us, and that they'll always be here. But the fact is that they're not, and so this is just another sad reminder. I mean, a couple years ago we had David Bowie and then Prince, so we're losing a lot of our huge music icons, and that's definitely what I feel he was, a music icon. I mean, think about any song of his that you know, and they're all like instant classics.
That's true. And one of the things I wanted to mention, you know, aside from being, you know, this excellent musician, you know, leader of the Heartbreakers, are you aware that Tom Petty voiced Lucky from King of the Hill?
I did not know that.
Yeah, actually, he voiced his character for a few years, and he came out as this hillbilly, loved mudding in his truck and whatnot, and he was just so hilarious. And I don't know, respectfully, I feel like that's how the real Tom Petty was.
Most likely, yeah.
I always had this dream, if you will, that, you know, I've mentioned it to my wife, where if I could have a beer with one rock star, it was always Tom Petty. And that's something that I hold true to this very day. And years before his passing, I have always said he was the one person I would have a beer with, because of that. He was so down to earth and just an all around amazing guy.
Yeah, totally. I mean, you could see him in interviews, or you just even watching his videos, even though, like, you know, he'd get the whole rock star treatment, he didn't look like a snobby dude.
Not
like
at all.
some other, like, you know, rock stars that we could mention, but we won't. But yeah, always seemed really down to earth. And there's actually a really good documentary about him on Netflix. I forget the name of it right now, but it's like a 3-hour long documentary.
Yeah, at least.
And it's amazing. It goes into his childhood, into the early days of Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers. It shows a lot of live footage from TV shows and concerts. If you're even slightly a Tom Petty fan, it would be super entertaining, and you'll catch yourself singing along to the songs.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, songs like American Girl, Breakdown, Refugee, Don't Do Me Like That, I Won't Back Down, Running Down a Dream, Free Falling. I mean, every song, you just say the title and you can almost instantly hear it.
Yeah.
And they're all unique, they're all catchy, they all kind of tell a bit of a story, and they're just great songs. I even, you know, over the summer I played guitar, and I was learning how to play American Girl, because it's just just a classic riff and chord progression. And even though I'll never be able to sing it that well, I mean, it's just fun to play, and there's that connection to Tom Petty.
Yeah, that's right, man.
And his music will live on. I mean, that's one of the great things, that we're lucky that he existed at a time where his music could be recorded and shared and live on forever. So at least he's gone, but his music will always stay here with us. And we say that for all of them, and it's because it's true.
That's true. I agree.
Cool. Anything else you want to add about Tom Petty?
No, I'm good. I mean, it's still, we still feel it. We still feel it like it. We're gonna feel it for a while. I mean, I know he was one of the greats, as we mentioned, and I mean, we just got to keep moving forward and listening to his music and become inspired.
Definitely. All right, so I guess we can talk about stuff that we're currently listening to, whether it's new, old, or whatever it is. So, scientists, what are you jamming out to these days?
Well, my current listens right now actually is still on topic. It's still Tom Petty. You know,
Nice.
see, since the passing, what I did was I went to my local record store and I went and bought a vinyl copy of, I believe, Hard Promises. So I've been listening to that, and I also bought, what is it?
Wildflowers.
Wildflowers. Yes, I
Yeah.
did mention that to you, and that's been an amazing album. That every song is just so, it's almost like folk music. and
Yeah, it
it's-
has a different vibe to it.
yeah, it's not the classic Tom Petty, but that folk vibe, it just hits you, and it hits you deeper right now.
Although there is one song that rocks pretty hard. You Wreck Me.
Yeah,
Love that
a
song.
little bit up tempo right there.
Yeah, it's got almost like a country rock vibe to it.
Yeah,
I've
so
always loved that one.
So right now, that's what I'm currently listening to. I mean, I'm going back to right now to country music. I'm checking out what's new, you know, respecting the classics, but that's currently where I'm at right now. I'm still, I guess you can say, in mourning, and I'm still enjoying Tom Petty's music as I did yesterday.
That's what the crazy thing. You listen to it and it just brims with so much life, and you're like, oh man, Tom Petty. I'm gonna go see him in concert, and then it hits you like, oh man,
It's never gonna happen.
It's never gonna happen again. So that's a total bummer. Yeah, that's one of those guys I wish I could have seen. And he was in the middle of a tour, and I think he still had a few more dates left on his tour, and that's such a terrible loss for everybody, and especially those who were looking forward to seeing him. And if anyone out there did get to go see him and saw what I'm sure is a great show, have any great memories, feel free to share those with us and let us know, and we'll try and shout out and share some of those stories back.
Yeah, even if there's like these awesome concert footage that you guys have, the pictures are going, believe us, we will definitely appreciate that and forward it, and it's amazing if you guys got to see Tom Petty live in concert.
Yeah, definitely. He's like one of the greats. As for me, what I'm currently listening to, as far as for me, also one of my greats, as I mentioned earlier, I do play guitar. So one of my favorites for guitar is Stevie Ray Vaughan. Okay. Over the summer, I was able to acquire a new guitar, although I haven't told my wife yet, so keep that on the DL. A Fender Strat, and fixed it up, and immediately a couple of people will come to mind.
For the record, let me pause you right there.
Sure.
How many guitars do you currently have?
I don't even know. It's at least more than 10.
Oh man.
Yeah, I got a ton, and a lot of them I buy used, so I'm trying not to go crazy with spending. But if I find something that I know I want to have, then I'll just try and add it to my collection.
I'll just say this, man. I can't buy a pair of drumsticks without asking for permission. So, so I envy you.
Well, you know what? If you ever want to buy those drumsticks and leave them in my house,
Yeah.
I'm totally fine with holding on to them. But yeah, so I picked up that guitar and I sit down and it's like, okay, I can either try and channel the great Jimi Hendrix, which I've also kind of been listening to now that I think about it. He was also, anyone who knows Stevie Ray Vaughan, Jimmy was a huge influence on Stevie Ray. He covered a lot of his songs, even from the way he dressed was very kind of like gypsy and kind of out there for the 80s. And so he was not only just a musical inspiration, but also like a personality inspiration, like to just be yourself. And Stevie was one of a kind. His tone, his feel, the way he played that guitar. If you ever find footage of him playing, he didn't like subtly play the guitar. He like strangled the neck and really you sweat all over it, and his face would get all contorted as he played that one note and held it, and it's amazing to watch and amazing to listen to. So he's definitely one that will come in and out of my rotation of listening, but lately I've been really digging his stuff again.
See, and I don't have much Stevie Ray Vaughan in my rotation, but I will say this though, if any music fan can spot a Stevie Ray Vaughan song out of a lineup. I mean, it's that unique.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I mean, that's just, I can't name you more than 2 or 3 songs, and that's fine. That's just the way it is. But my goodness, you can pick his music out of a lineup.
Yeah, even if you didn't know the song, as soon as you heard the guitar tone or his voice, like, oh, that's Stevie Ray.
Yep.
Like, it's unmistakable, and that's that's something that not everyone can claim to have, especially in a world now of millions of musicians. To have someone like we were talking about Tom Petty or going back to Jimi Hendrix, you hear them and you instantly know that's their sound.
Yeah.
And that's an amazing thing.
Yeah,
So
and you're also able to see those musicians who are influenced by them.
oh yeah, definitely. I mean, okay, so we had Jimmy influence Stevie Ray, a big influence for that Stevie Ray has on a current artist, John Mayer.
Yep.
If you've ever, I mean, if you only know like the radio John Mayer, you're not getting the full picture.
Oh, I agree.
I remember years ago. So this is kind of going off topic, but it still kind of ties into Stevie Ray and influence. I remember being laying down on the bed watching TV with my then girlfriend. We're like, what are we gonna watch? And Austin City Limits comes on, and it's John Mayer. And I'm thinking, he's gonna play some of his radio songs. He had a Fender Strat. He was playing like blues, and he sounded pretty darn close to Stevie Ray rather. And I was like, wow, this guy can really play. And so I got a whole newfound respect for John Mayer. I mean, and I like some of his songs, which maybe, now that I think about it, some of his songs kind of leak into our guilty pleasure thing where, Your Body is a Wonderland.
Okay.
Such a silly song, but like a sensual song.
I will say
but it's
this.
catchy.
I will say this though. John Mayer, okay, his first album, Room for Squares.
Kind of poppy.
It is poppy, but we're being introduced to him. Labels probably telling him, you gotta give what the people want.
Yeah.
And even though it's amazing, because that entire album is incredible, he went on to make. He won Grammys for album songs in Continuum, if I'm not mistaken.
That's a great album.
And he evolved as an artist in every
Gravity.
single album. It's different, and you see that again, that influence from Stevie, from Clapton, and you name it.
Oh yeah, for sure. And going back to Tom Petty and Prince, get people that can reinvent themselves with every album.
Exactly.
And take on any style, which he's definitely a really good example of that. He's like flying the torch high for great musicians and great songwriters.
I agree.
So now that I'm saying this, I'm like, you know what? I need to go back and listen to some more John Mayer, and to like totally on the other end of the spectrum from blues and old school rock, a band that I happened to come across on my Google Play app, Archspire. I haven't done a lot of research as to where they come from, but it's brutal, crazy death metal with almost a classical vibe to it.
Okay.
It's very fast, very technical. It's great workout music. I think the album flies by in 30 minutes or under, but it's super intense, like high speed, and it got me through my workout. And I didn't realize the album's starting over again, and I'm still like into it. Like it still sounded very refreshing. Very cool band. So they're definitely ones that I'm going to be looking out for more stuff from. And then an album that I'm actually looking forward to just got released today. The Black Dahlia Murder.
Okay.
Nightbringers, I believe it's called. So I'm definitely looking forward to jamming that over the weekend. And they're another really cool heavy death metal band that is not afraid of bringing in a bit of melody and like melodic playing into the blast beats and guttural screams and growls. So it's a nice mix. Again, if you're ever talking about death metal, it is an acquired taste, and I understand that. You might not be into it, but if you're looking for really crazy and impressive instrumentation that's fast and in your face and heavy, you can't go wrong with any brutal death metal band, and those are two that I would definitely recommend.
So these bands are more like a proceed with caution.
Oh, definitely.
And an open mind.
And an open mind, definitely. That's one of the things I actually wanted to mention earlier, how one of my goals as I've gotten older, I just recently turned 36. Okay. I want to be as open-minded as possible. So whenever I get a recommendation, hey, check this out, check that out, even if it seems like it's something I never would listen to, at least I'll give it a shot, listen to a song or two. And if I dig it, I dig it. If I don't, no hard feelings, you know what I mean? It's just something that we're only here for a short amount of time. Take in as much good music as you possibly can.
Oh, I agree.
Don't turn your back on a good recommendation.
I agree.
Right on. So now onto our main topic here.
Oh man, yeah.
The guilty pleasures.
Guilty pleasures.
And I know I'm going to be leaving some out, but right off the top of my head, I think of pop music. Okay. I walk around wearing metal shirts. I have tattoos. I look like a metal guy, and I'm very proud to be a metal guy.
Right.
But don't be surprised if you pull up next to me in my car and I'm singing to an Ace of Base song. I can't help it. They were like the ABBA reborn in the mid '90s.
Yeah.
You couldn't escape their music from being on the radio. And my introduction was my sister. My older sister had one of their cassettes.
Okay.
So that's telling you how old that is. And I couldn't help, getting into the beats and the lyrics and the hooks. And they actually are a band that I won't necessarily go out of my way to listen to every day, but every now and then the mood strikes me. Hey, let me lighten the mood and I'll jam to some Ace of Base.
Okay, I actually want to pause right there. I mean, and this is the cool thing about guilty pleasure is like what you find, maybe a little bit embarrassing to admit that you're a fan of. Okay, I am like an all-out Ace of Base fan, have been since I was a kid. Same thing, I believe my brother had, and if he ever heard this, he would deny it. He had an Ace of Base single, and I would jam out to it, and I hit after hit after hit.
Yeah.
All I can say is if I could find an Ace of Base t-shirt, I would rock that.
Right on.
I would
More power to you.
And that's not a guilty pleasure band for me because I have an Ace of Base station on my Pandora account.
Right on.
And I'm always playing it. It's one of my favorites. So I think that's what's cool about bringing out these guilty pleasures. Is like what somebody might find a little embarrassing or a little uncomfortable admitting, I'll embrace it. Or
right on.
vice versa.
Yeah, vice versa, for sure.
So I'm going to throw one at you. And I'll admit, yes, again, I am embarrassed, but I was a huge fan and I can name you so many songs. And I'm so afraid to admit it, but Savage Garden.
Get it out there, man.
Savage Garden.
Get
was
it off
that
your chest.
Yeah. In junior high, man, I mean, it was all about pop music in junior high. Yes, we had Nirvana, The Offspring, Pearl Jam, but yes, in my headphones, I was playing Savage Garden. I mean, that first Truly Madly Deeply record, dude, I was singing that.
Now that I'm looking at some of the song titles here, I think I can hear one in my head, so I do know them.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, they're Grammy winners.
Yeah. They're one of those other bands that you couldn't escape. I mean, you would hear it, and if you weren't seeking it out, and then you heard the song, like, how do I know this? Because their music was everywhere.
It was such a guilty pleasure, man, that my CD, I had either worn it out or broke it from listening to it too much, that I went out and bought a second copy.
Right on. See, now I know what to get you for Christmas. I'll find a Savage Garden t-shirt for you. They got to be out there.
I'm not sure that I'll rock that, but you know what?
But you know what? You're going to have to.
If they made a comeback.
Or an Ace of Base shirt.
Yeah, if these guys ever made a comeback, yeah, I'm going to listen. And hopefully I'm going to embrace it even more.
Right on. You know what? Kind of going back on that, like the whole like genre of pop for you was in middle school.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said earlier, I grew up with MTV.
Right.
And in those early days, it was all like hair metal.
Right.
Mm-hmm. And pop music. A lot of like just old school pop music. And I mean, you've got the King, right? So of course everyone loves Michael Jackson. There's no way to not like that. But I remember clearly hanging out with some of my metal buddies, having a barbecue, and my iPod's the one that's connected, and my buddy says, hey, let's put something else on. Mm-hmm. Yeah, sure, find something and put it on. And he's scrolling through, and he's like, Bon Jovi, Poison. Like, you like that stuff? Because he thought I was into just the hardcore, heavy stuff. Right. I was like, yeah, dude, I grew up with that stuff, right? So I love all that kind of stuff. I mean, I'm looking at Savage Garden, and they remind me of Tears for Fears. Yeah. They're another group that I love, and I might not know every song, but if I hear them, I'll know that it's them, and I'll definitely be into it, right? And another time that I got outed at one of my barbecues, Selena.
Okay.
Now we're from. Do you want to reveal where we're from?
Sure, why not?
Yeah, we're from Deep South Texas. Selena is kind of like music royalty down here. Yeah. What do they call her? She's like the queen of Tejano.
Yeah, she was the queen of Tejano.
Yeah.
Music.
And she was also like, you would hear it at weddings and baby showers, barbecues. Like there was no way you could escape Selena's music, and I was right in there with them. I love it. It's catchy. She has she had an amazing voice. Right. Sadly, we lost her way too early as well. But one of my friends saw like, you have Selena, and it was not just one album. I had several of them on my iPod.
Well, she was extremely influential, whether it was the Spanish-speaking music. She influenced millions in Mexico.
Oh, definitely.
In Texas, where, Hispanic. And so we had a lot of, influence from Selena's music. And she was making her way into the American pop, outlet, and she was succeeding.
She was paving the way for a lot of other artists.
That's what I'm looking for. Yeah.
Like Shakira ended up doing it later, several years later. After that, she started off from Colombia, making her pop. Another one like, I'll jam to some Shakira music every now and then. I'd rather watch her dance and sing, but her music is pretty good as well. Speaking of like Latin artists, are you a Maná fan?
I am. I really like the band, and I know I have a lot of friends from Mexico. I have, so much respect for this band. Yes, I am a fan of Maná.
Cool. I hear them. I never really got into them all that much, but I never like disliked them.
Okay.
So whenever one of my friends was a huge Maná fan, he'd have them playing in his car. I'd find myself, singing along or bobbing my head to the music. So they're another one that, like, maybe now that I'm older, I can go back and kind of check them out. Maybe I'll have a newfound appreciation for.
Yeah, and I will say this, regarding Maná, their drummer, I believe, is Alex Gonzalez. That dude is one of my favorite drummers. He is amazing when he plays, So I really admire his skill, and yeah, that's another reason why I enjoy that band.
Awesome, cool. There you go. See, one band, one musician kind of triggers another, and then another, and then like I said, we could just talk about these for a long time.
Oh yeah.
So I went ahead and got Selena off my chest, which I that's one I'm kind of not. I don't feel too guilty of, but I remember being kind of like shamed.
I think it was at the time, wasn't it?
For liking her, yeah. And so I was like, you know what? I'm gonna own it. I like Selena.
She has her own. There's a festival for her, right?
Yeah, definitely. And she's from Corpus Christi, which is only a couple hours away from where we live. So yeah, like I said, like her impact is still going strong, and I can't imagine it fading anytime soon.
Yeah. What? I'm gonna give you a 2-for-1 on this next guilty pleasure of mine. Okay, so again, growing up, middle school, pop music. I guess I like pop music.
I know. I do too.
So I'm gonna give you a 2-for-1. I was a fan of NSYNC and Backstreet Boys. So I mean, Justin Timberlake, grew up to be this, jack of all trades. He can do it all.
He's amazing.
So and Backstreet Boys is still together. They're doing their Vegas shows right now, and it's so awesome. And I will say this though, liking their music is so cool. And I believe I have somebody who can back me up on that, that is worthy of me liking pop music even more. And I'm going to say Zakk Wylde from Black Label Society. If you're going to question me, you have to question him, because all of these artists influence the next generation of singers. So Zakk Wylde, has commented that a while back that he's actually a fan of Lady Gaga and her music. Now, going back to Ace of Base, NSYNC, Backstreet Boys, they're all influenced by, their predecessors. So, yeah. So if Zakk Wylde likes Lady Gaga, then I can admit that I liked NSYNC and Backstreet Boys then.
Right on, man.
I still do.
There you go. And talking about, Lady Gaga, I mean, I'm sure you guys remember she performed on stage with Metallica at the Grammys.
Yeah, she did.
And she sounded amazing. I'm watching it and listening, I'm thinking, why doesn't she have a power metal band?
Yeah.
Her voice combined with heavy guitars would be amazing. And so I'm just thinking, like, she's missing out if she's not pursuing a power metal band on the side.
Yeah, definitely.
But yeah, like NSYNC, Backstreet Boys. That reminds me when I was a kid, the big boy band at the time was New Kids on the Block.
Okay.
And while I think I was too young to get like all caught up into like and obviously I wasn't like all into like, oh my god, like like all in love with them. The songs are pretty catchy, and if I haven't listened to them lately, I don't know how well they've aged. But if I hear one somewhere, it'll at least take me back to when I was a kid, remembering when all that stuff was popular, the right stuff, hanging tough. It's actually kind of cheesy now that I think about it, but that was the thing at the time. One of my other, like, as far as like a genre that I'm as kind of a guilty pleasure is like musicals.
Okay.
Growing up, I was into, like I said, whatever was on MTV. My parents' cassette and record collection, which included AC/DC, Pink Floyd, Elvis, all that kind of stuff, which I would never be ashamed of admitting. And I wasn't exposed to a lot of musicals. One of the first ones, however, was Grease. The soundtrack for the movie with John Travolta and Olivia Newton-John.
Yeah.
I still remember when my wife at the time was a girlfriend. When we were first dating, she's looking through my big giant Bible of CDs, flipping through the pages, metal, 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 rock, metal. Grease soundtrack.
Grease soundtrack.
And I remember her like asking me, "You like Grease?" I was like, "Yeah, those songs are super catchy, and I love that movie. It's like one of my childhood favorites." And
awesome.
I remember her telling me later that she realized that, you know what, I think there's more to this guy than just metal and craziness. If he's willing to admit that he likes the Grease soundtrack, and so that was one of my first musicals that I ever was a fan of. And then of course you have, like Disney movie musicals. Right. One of my current favorites is La La Land, which I actually did lend the scientist my copy of because I wanted more people to talk about it with, whether they love it or hate it. I like discussing that film and the music that's in it.
Yeah, and you did lend me your copy, and I checked it out with my wife. And, we read six Academy Award wins. So we started the movie and the musical or whatever, and it starts with this big old number on the highway, which I thought that setting was awesome.
Yeah, it was very, very well done.
I really hope I don't spoil it for anybody, but, okay, within the first 15 to 20 minutes, I was ready to turn it off.
Yeah.
Because I'm not used to musicals. But there was one number that made me like, oh my goodness, like these two are amazing. They are like, I see why they won the Academy Awards, and it's in the end, it's a must watch. It's a must have. It's a beautiful musical.
Yeah, Emma Watson does an amazing job singing that number at the end. It's not Emma Stone. Emma Stone. Is that it?
Yeah. It's
you don't want to give any spoilers?
Well, it's not Emma Watson.
Yeah, Emma Watson. That's Hermione Granger, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, my bad. Emma Stone. Sorry, Emma Watson. You're awesome too. But Emma Stone is the one singing in that movie with
Ryan Gosling.
That's the guy, Ryan Gosling, who also, again, I mean, how many great things can you be good at? Acting, dancing, singing, and be a heartthrob all at once. Come on, man.
Yeah, no kidding.
Give us a break here. But yeah, I loved it when I first saw it, and there's a lot that I could relate to. This isn't a movie podcast by any means, but I highly recommend it as far as a current musical. And it's not a musical like a few years ago. My wife dragged me to go see Les Miserables in the theater, the one with
Hugh Jackman.
And what's her name? Anne Hathaway.
Mm-hmm.
I have not gone back to see it since.
Okay.
I respect all the acting and musicians in it. But it was just too taxing on me. It was just nonstop singing. It was too much. I don't know if I could handle that. I prefer when they take a moment every now and then and talk. Mm-hmm. But on the flip side of that, as I'm saying that, one of my current favorite musicals is, I'm sure no one would be surprised by, Hamilton.
Okay.
Got introduced to it a couple years ago. Mm-hmm. Fell in love with it almost immediately.
Okay.
I mean, there was a point where I was listening to it every single day. I need to memorize all these lyrics. It's impossible. There's so much. But that one is also pretty much sung and rapped all the way through. There's almost no spoken dialogue.
Wow.
So,
okay. Yeah, and I suppose you have Hamilton as this great nonstop, right?
Current masterpiece, I feel.
Okay. One of the ones that did it for me as well. And I'm thinking about not so much dialogue and more just musical throughout the entire film is Phantom of the Opera.
Ah, yes.
See, my wife introduced me to Phantom of the Opera. I laughed so many times. I giggled. Oh my God, Gerard Butler, like this. Buff dude, singing. I didn't know this is
King Leonidas singing.
Exactly.
Come on, get out of here.
So I laughed, I giggled throughout the entire film, but it stayed with me. So even till.
And it looks amazing.
Yeah.
It's just an amazing looking movie.
It's not until recently that I asked my wife, "Can we watch it?" And she's like, "Yeah, put it on." And I'm singing along now, and I watch it, and yeah, I'll admit I'm reading the book now.
Right on.
So I mean, it's amazing. I came around, and that's even better.
You never know.
Yeah.
Right? That's why it's, like we said earlier, it's good to have an open mind. You never know if something and I've actually found that to be true for me too. Like something I don't like initially, a lot of times I'll come back around and I'll really love it. Like one of my favorite bands is Dream Theater.
Okay.
When I first heard them, couldn't stand the singing.
Okay.
I thought the music itself was great, and I didn't listen to it for months. And then one day I popped it back into my CD player and I was blown away by it, and I fell in love with it all over again, or for the first time, and they've been a favorite ever since. So that would be one piece of advice I would give anybody. Like, go back and listen to something maybe you didn't like before. You never know; it could turn out to be a a favorite from then on.
You know, you mentioned Dream Theater. Rachel, if I'm not mistaken, had mentioned to me that he went to check them out in Houston.
Oh, awesome.
And he spoke highly of this band, and he's always told me to listen to them, and they're prog metal, right?
Oh, yeah.
So, and I'm not a huge prog metal guy, but, you know, I'm open-minded, and maybe, you know, with another recommendation, I'll check them out, and I know they're great.
Oh, yeah.
But
the musicianship is top notch.
Yeah,
I mean, you can't beat these guys.
He sang nothing but praises about Dream Theater, and I believe he was stoked that he actually got to talk to one of the guys.
Awesome.
I don't know who, but
any one of them is a virtuoso.
Yeah, so that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I'm a big nerd fan of them. Being a guitar player, especially, I love all that kind of stuff. But I would say, like, if you're a fan of Rush, then I would say Dream Theater is like Rush modernized and maybe a little bit of steroids.
Okay,
they get a little bit heavier, but like they also like they'll have 10-minute songs, 20-minute songs. I kid you not, there's one song that's the whole CD. It's just one like 45-minute like story and concept album, and it's amazing. So that would be another recommendation. Now it's like, you know what? As I drive home today, I think I'm gonna jam to some Dream Theater.
Hop in some Dream Theater.
Those guys are awesome.
All right. You know, one of the things I wanted to touch up that it's actually not on our list right now is we actually got released our nominees for the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Oh yeah.
I sent you that earlier. We talked about it earlier, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
briefly.
Yeah, briefly. And you know, checking out my screen right now, I'm looking at the nominees, and dude, there's like a lot of 80s bands and artists on here. It's a pretty cool lineup right now. Like I'm looking at I saw Bon Jovi is nominated.
Right on.
Judas Priest.
Oh, they gotta be there.
Yeah, and these are nominees. So I mean, Radiohead is there.
Definitely another like legendary band at this point. Nina Simone.
Oh, I love Nina Simone. If she's not in, I'm gonna throw a fit.
Right, like she's one of those. Also, like we were talking about earlier, you hear her voice and you instantly know that's Nina.
Yeah, exactly.
Amazing. And there's also a great documentary about her on Netflix, and I think a biopic.
Okay.
I think it was Zoe Saldana, or I don't forget who portrayed her, but I haven't watched that one yet.
Okay.
Something to look out for.
Yeah, definitely. You know, another one of the bands that I really like, you know, I think the Zombies are like, what, from the 60s or something? Are you?
I'm not familiar with the Zombies. I like the name, though.
Yeah, they were a cool band. They have some hits. I'm sure you know who they are.
I'm sure if I heard them, I'd probably recognize them.
I saw Depeche Mode on there. How influential were they?
They're another one of those bands that I know their songs without ever, like, trying to be, like a huge fan. But, yeah, the Depeche Mode was huge in the 80s, 90s, and they still continue to perform.
Yeah, I'm looking at the Zombies. Yeah, they're from the mid to late 60s, and one of their huge hits is Time of the Season. So, yeah, I'm always jamming out to that
check that one out.
60s British rock, and, yeah, that was an
very cool,
awesome song.
I love zombie movies, so anybody naming themselves the Zombies got to be cool.
Right? There's Rage Against the Machine. What
Rage.
do you think about
Oh, man, they're a band that their name says it all, and no matter what, I don't know how you guys feel politically, and we're not going to go into that deeply. But they're a band that I feel is sorely needed at this point. Okay. Their music is very politically charged and very like almost activist in the form of music, and very angry. And they're great to put on also if you're gonna go hit the gym or you just need to get some aggression out. Some great early and any era Rage Against the Machine is awesome. Tom Morello, one of the most inventive and amazing guitar players out there. Who still goes strong, and he has his own side projects. Of course, later teaming up with Chris Cornell and forming Audio Slave, who were another great band that he was involved with, which was basically Rage Against the Machine with Chris Cornell, but they changed out their sound. They didn't sound anything like Rage, so
that's cool.
All great musicians. Who else you got there? Dire Straits.
Dire Straits, yeah.
They're one of those. Yeah. Oh man, and Sultans of Swing.
Yeah.
Love that song. The guitar solo in that is amazing. The Eurythmics.
Yeah.
Oh, those. Yeah. I mean, I don't know all her songs, but you reckon? What's the singer's name? You hear her?
I know who she is, and I can see her, but I don't recognize her voice. I mean,
Annie Lennox.
Yeah, there you go.
You hear her voice, and you instantly know like that's her. And she looked cool. I remember seeing her in the music videos when I was a kid. What is this? Long Eligible. You got the Cars. Oh, the Cars. Yeah, for sure. Another great 80s band that I think has aged extremely well. Tons of great songs.
Yeah. You have LL Cool J on the list as well.
Yeah.
And his music is influential.
Don't call it a comeback.
Yeah.
LL was the man. He's still awesome. He reinvented himself as an actor.
Yeah. Yeah, he transitioned very well.
Yeah, he's really cool.
So yeah, this is what the lineup looks like, and there are a few more other artists nominees, and it's going to be a vote, right? Like some historians or a lot of other artists, and of course the audience gets to weigh in on who they believe should be inducted into the Hall of Fame.
Oh yeah.
But who stands out to you? I mean, who do you think it's like okay?
No question.
Yeah.
I would say Judas Priest, Nina Simone. Let me see who else. The Cars and Rage. I think just for for me, they're a band that I'm surprised is on there when you see all these other bands like Judas Priest. Is also a really heavy band, and then Rage is a super heavy band. Not necessarily in just the way they sound, but the way they present their music, it is very aggressive. So to see those right next to someone like Nina Simone or Radiohead, which I don't see as a heavy band,
Right.
it's really cool that the heavy music gets its due notice.
I see. Yeah, I mean, and off the top of my head, I mean, again, Nina Simone, she needs to be a shoe-in. She is a shoe-in, and hopefully the voters can see that. Judas Priest, of course, heavily influential to future generations of metalheads out there.
For sure.
That leather and how is that leather vibe, the biker vibe. That
For sure.
have.
Which looking back now, finding out that Rob Halford, the metal god, was gay and really into the metal and the leather and the studs and the whips and all that stuff. But at the time, hey, it's metal. It all fit and no shame in his game for sure.
Of course not. How awesome was he? I'm liking this list. It's a good year. It's a good lineup.
Yeah, very cool. So, any closing thoughts?
Follow us, like us. That's what I'm at.
Yeah, hit us back with any of your guilty pleasures, whatever you're currently listening to, anything you recommend that should get a little bit more attention. We'll check it out and we'll let you guys know.
Alrighty, guys. And once again, don't forget to like us on Facebook, The Skeptics Review. On Twitter, you can tweet us at Skeptics Review. Again, leave us your thoughts, your comments. What are your guilty pleasures? Why are they? And, of course, what are your thoughts on Tom Petty? We also have an Instagram account. You can find us at The Skeptics Review.
Right on.
And share stuff with us. Anything dealing with music, we want to hear about it. Even if you like it or if you don't, why not? So let us know and keep us posted.
All right. See you next time, guys.
Laters.